First of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to moderate a session on a very interesting topic on FinTech, a topic which I have been working on for a couple of years now at Fleurik Business School. Also, very warm welcome from my part to all of the different panelists. I'm really looking forward to your insights on this topic. So, in my short introduction, I will talk about the following. What is FinTech? Why are we also interested in FinTech? And we are, because I've been in London a few times now this year, and really, literally, if you want to, you can go to a FinTech event every day. So there's a lot of interest, there's a lot of debate, there's a lot of discussion going on this topic at this moment. How about these FinTech ecosystems? What are the different parties involved? What are the different players involved? And what can we expect for the coming years? But let me start by saying this, and some people react surprised when I say this, but there's really nothing new about FinTech. FinTech has been around for years. When we analyze the word FinTech, it's financial technology, and banks, insurance companies have been financial technology firms for quite a while now. They have digital products, they have digital services, and in many countries, in fact, banks are the largest IT companies around. If you look at the amount of money allocated to IT systems, if you look at the headcount in IT departments, they are by far the largest IT companies around. Also, here in Belgium, we have quite a rich history of FinTech, even if we call it FinTech 1.0, with companies like Swift, Euroclear, Clear2Pay, Isabel, Bancontact, Mr. Cash, MasterCard Europe, headquarters here, and the many software providers for the financial services sector. So there's nothing really new about FinTech, yet that's not the FinTech that you're all here for today. You're here for the FinTech 2.0, and this is about the new challengers that have entered the financial services sector since a few years. And they can mainly be categorized in two groups. The large tech companies, the GAFA, the Googles, the Apples, the Facebooks, the Amazons. And let's not forget companies like Alibaba, because we tend to forget the Chinese fintech market, but there's quite a substantial fintech market in China also, which at certain levels is more advanced than the one that we know in Europe. And the new small startups like TransferWise, WorldRemit, Square, Stripe, Wealthfront, Mondo, and the many others out there. I will not name them all because they come in great numbers. Now, a few years ago, when I was talking to banking executives, the one question that always popped up was, what if Apple, what if Google becomes a bank? What do we have to do? The main focus was on that first category of intruders, invaders of the financial services sector, on the big tech companies. Today, that's not the only concern for banks, as some new challengers have entered the financial services market. And these smaller startups, they have a few characteristics in common. They typically tend to focus on one specific product or services. They don't want to offer a myriad of services to all possible customers. No, they have a very strong focus on one specific thing they want to change. They're very transparent, very data-driven, analytics-driven, and they focus on simplification, taking away friction that customers experience in their day-to-day banking activity. Another thing they have in common is they tend to avoid or omit regulatory compliance. They're not the biggest fans of regulation. Most of them have some difficulty in dealing with regulation. And we see, well, when I talk to a lot of fintech companies in London where you see a different rate of maturity already compared to, for example, in Belgium, is that you see that once they start growing, they understand that this is a heavily regulated sector and that they do need this capacity to deal with regulation. And, well, the private sector, for one, seems to love these fintech startups. This is just one of the latest numbers that I could find from Citigroup and CB Insights reports. They talk about $19 billion of private investments in global fintech in 2015. And it's not the number as such that is interesting, but if we compare it to the last 5 years, that's kind of times 10. If we look at the year-on-year evolution in there, that's really interesting. Most of the startups focus on payments, lending, funding, and asset management as a domain. And from a customer perspective, most of them focus on the retail and SME market. So to sum up, if we look at these startups, they go where the money is, and they go where the pain is. So you will find fintech startups where the money meets the pain. So these are the three new players in the financial services sector: the incumbent players, the banks, the insurance companies, the market infrastructures, then the large tech companies and the smaller startups. And the traditional partner or compete dilemma that you have is specifically in the financial services sector a very interesting one, because yes, there is of course competition between these different players. But on the other hand, what you see lately is a lot of partnerships happening between these different players also. Why? Well, banks are interested in fresh new ideas that the fintech startups can bring, an amount of creativity, and the speed of execution, which is sometimes a problem with a lot of the larger banks. The startups, on their hand, they need scale, they need customer base, they need trust, because believe it or not, if we look at the number of studies, it seems that banks still hold more trust than a lot of fintech companies or tech companies. And they need some capacity to deal with regulation. And this is something that banks can offer them. Some things, and the large tech companies from their hand, they possess platform experience. They bring a huge user base, a strong brand, and they know how to shape a customer experience. So there's a lot of complementarity also between these players. So what we will see in the future, I'm sure, is both competition and a lot of partnering between these three players, which will shape the future of the financial services sector. How this will happen, it can be through investments, incubators, acquisitions, licensings, other forms of collaboration. We see all of these different things happening at this moment. So, to finish my introduction, I would like to conclude with three questions that, according to me, will shape the future of the financial services sector. First of all, what will the position of the regulator or the regulators be? Because it's clear that in this story, regulators can shape the future of the sector. Many banks are complaining about the amount of regulation that's coming their way, yet maybe the most important inhibiting factor for true disruption of this sector at this moment might be the fact that it's heavily regulated. Now, but can regulation and innovation really go hand in hand, and how do you have to organize for that? That's really an interesting one, according to me. Secondly, how open will banking be in the future? Will we evolve towards an API-based open banking ecosystem? How will that look like? Which are the different parties involved? And a third one, how disruptive will DLT, distributed ledger technology, blockchain as we know it, be for the financial services sector? Because still today, a lot of what FinTech is focusing on is what we call that the last mile. It is kind of an experience layer that they put on top of the existing market infrastructure. But it's not fundamentally changing the market infrastructure. Blockchain has the potential to fundamentally transform the foundation of the financial services sector. Yet, most people who know what it's about know that there's still many hurdles to overcome. And the interesting part, according to me, is that these three questions are, of course, interrelated, which makes it even more interesting and challenging to answer them. I will leave it at that for my introduction. I'm looking forward to each of the panelists' view on FinTech and to hear your story. So we will now have the 5 speakers in the following order. First, Jacob, then Peter, then Dan, then Noemi, and finally, Luc. Afterwards, we will have a panel discussion, and we will leave the questions for the panel discussion. So, Jacob, the floor is yours.